Thank you, Miss Price. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're listening to this fabulous chapter read by Miss Cameron. We are reading chapter 7, Theft at Dawn. Oh, sorry, I'm just taking a moment to get over that last chapter. It's pretty intense, wasn't it? How did you feel? How do you think the mother felt? How do you think the children felt? My goodness me, lots of questions I've got whirling in my brain, and I just can't wait to dive in to see what's going to happen next. Right, chapter 7. The children went straight to their beds that night. They all slept fitfully, remembering from time to time that terrible scene by the river. Dan cried to go back home, and the girls cried in their hearts for their mother. Catherine was wide awake long before daylight. She sat for a time on the thinking log, listening to the other two in their unhappy sleep. It was bitterly cold that morning, and when she went out to the trickle stream for drinking water, she found that it was frozen. The sky was white by now, and would remain so all day. Rooks and crows bunched themselves together on bare branches. They croaked bleakly to one another. Truly, winter was here. Gosh, it must be cold out in that barn. Catherine thought it would be an idea to light their cooking fire just inside the little low pen that had been built onto the back of the barn and where they stored their logs. It had no roof, but at least the walls would provide a shelter from the wind. But they should keep Cloudy in the pen perhaps and bring straw out of the barn for her. How would they feed her when the grass was frozen to the ground? And if they gave her the oats and corn they themselves ate, would these last her till the thaw? And if they kept her in the pen, would they have to fashion some sort of roof for it, perhaps out of logs? That would keep her dry. But how could they light a fire in there if they did that? Why do you think that would be an issue, lighting a fire if the roof is made out of logs? Have a think. Ask Miss Fletcher if you don't know. There seemed to be no answer to these problems. Coming back into the barn and thinking again, as she would do from time to time for weeks to come, of the events of yesterday at the river, she remembered that they had left a box of eggs behind in their haste. She told herself then that that was what she was going back down for, but she knew too that if she didn't go back to the riverbank soon, she'd never rid herself of the nightmare memories of what had taken place there. She decided to let Tessa and Dan sleep on, though there was as much daylight now as there would ever be on that gloomy day. She ran lightly down through the woods, and her steps rang on the hard earth, and her breath danced in front of her. Do you know what? I've had cold days when I've been out, and then when I'm breathing, my breath comes out, but very nicely put with that personification of danced. Better to set off on a task like this than to sit brooding all day on the thinking log. That was forbidden, but there was still plenty of it done. As soon as the path brought her at last out of the woods into the clearing, she could see the black gleam of the river and the slow rise of smoke from Mistress Hogg's chimney. Soon she would see the egg box and could tell even from there that it was turned at an odd angle and that the straw was lying around it. She ran down the last part of the slope to the river, but she knew now what she would find. The box had been turned over. All its contents were scattered. Every one of the eggs was smashed. In her frustration, Catherine would have liked to kick the box, straw and all, shell fragments and all, into the river, and would have done if she hadn't remembered that the broken eggs would provide food for some hungry animals that would find little else to eat now that ice had come on the earth. She looked across at the closed-up shutters of the farmhouse and the pigeons perched in their loft. She looked at the yard, empty except for the hens scratching round it. A picture came to her of Maggie Hogg's on market day with baskets and baskets of eggs to sell and her children playing around her. Plenty of eggs to sell then, plenty of people to buy them. But what use had that poor mad woman for hens now? Almost without realising it, Catherine had crossed the stepping stones onto the other side of the river and was creeping across Hogg's field. Her heart leapt like a wild bird in her throat. She sidled across the field like a cat, as slowly as she dared. It seemed to take her hours to cross it. Not a sound came from the house. When she reached the yard, the hens ran over to her, standing on her feet and pecking the hem of her dress in search of grain. Catherine shrank away, not daring to move, hardly daring to breathe, too frightened either to go on forward or to run back. From inside the cottage came a sudden shriek of a bench being scraped back, and that brought the life back to her. She bent down, grabbed 2 hens, tucked one under each arm, and ran back over the field like a thieving fox. That was quite a short chapter there, following on from Miss Price's long one. My goodness me, how do you think Miss Hoggs feels about her 2 hens being pinched? What's going to happen next? Well, let's find out, Miss Fletcher. Carry on. Have a lovely day.